One of the leading causes for violence is illiteracy. It affects society um, socially and economically. So, in a bid to promote peace and provide a just world for women and children, it is important to promote literacy among men. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life After Abuse Foundation Chat Room. My name is Tiwalade Shonoki, and I'm going to be your host for today. Our topic is preventing violence through literacy, and we have the honor of inviting a special guest on board, Mr. Oluwaseun Kafari. Let me try, bringing him on board. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for the glitch. Hello. Hi. Okay. So, Mr. Kafari is on board right now. Let's hold on for him. Hi, Mr. Kafari. You're welcome. Let's board.
It's a great pleasure to be here with you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get straight to it. Our questions. Let's start from the first one, right? So tell us, you are a literacy advocate and a tutor, an ambassador for literacy. So what has your experience been like? What has it been like as a tutor?
Okay, first and foremost, I think I would like to start from when those old teaching things started. That was when I was serving in Delta State, Ughelli. And then, I happened to be teaching at the Institute of Continuous Education. That's a school specially made for both the younger students and for adults. So I was teaching English and literature. So I teach the younger class from JSS1 to JSS3 English during the day. And then later in the evening, the adults, the elderly ones come around to, take their own classes. And, it's just opened my eyes wider to the fact that this literacy issue in Nigeria is a critical one. You can see elderly people who wants to learn, and it's a lot of work trying to teach adults how to read from the basic level, teaching them English, teaching them literature. But it's also helped me to understand what it means to teach people patiently, bringing yourself down to their level, because teaching is not just coming in front of the class and teaching. It takes a great level of level of understanding where these people are coming from, what their problem is, and how to address that academical issue they have. So I have to deal with all of those things, trying to make them get better at their reading. So from there, that was how I also started doing private lesson teaching while still in Delta State. Somebody hooked me up with a family and I taught their daughter. And then from there, I got a job again. I was teaching JAM students how to, the English and literature as well. So I just kind of found my passion with teaching during the time I was in Delta State. And then, while I was going to leave the school I was done with, the students were all crying and everything. And, they brought a lot of gifts. And then it just goes on to show that, okay, I really made an impact in the life of the students. And, it was really touching. They were still coming to my Corpus Lodge even after I was done with their school to come and check up on me. And that goes on to show that I'd been able to make an impact in their life. So, coming back to Lagos, I then got a job with Flipbook. I started out as the first staff of the company. And then, we started out not as a literacy foundation. We're actually going to start doing what we call creative writing to encourage young writers to write creatively, and they submit their write-ups, and then we'll do a kind of competition and reward them, representative from different schools. But when we now realize that students from public schools, most of students from the public schools were not writing well. Like, their proficiency in grammar and everything was really poor. So we needed to now go to these schools. Okay, let's really see what's happening. And then, we gave them some writing prompts to write on. And then we discovered that 80% of these students cannot even write proficiently. And then we now give them books to read. And they will now discover that they could not even read books that we give to them. We now had to come back with some sets of books to really know what's really happening with the students. That you can't read the book for your level. Their class texts, they could not read well. Some could not even pick 3-4 letter words. So, we now had to come back with Queen Premier. So we came back with Queen Premier for secondary school students. And then, they were still struggling with Queen Premier 1, Queen Premier 2, which was a serious problem. And then we now had to okay, this is beyond what we actually planned for. So Flipbook, that was planning to do creative writing and the competition, now had to go into foundation. There's a critical problem here. If you really want to make the best out of what we are doing, then we really need to address this literacy issue. And that was how the Flipbook Foundation started, trying to help low literate students. You realize that in secondary school, you have so many students, SS class, GSS class, who cannot read at their class level. And then you realize that even Queen Premier, they can barely read 2-3 letter words. So it was a serious problem. We were doing it at first for like a year or two. We were running it alone, but we just realized that if we want to really achieve so much, then we need to incorporate other organizations, stakeholders that would be interested in this course, that would help these children who can barely read at their class level. And then it goes on to show that the public school system in Nigeria is in a terrible state. Because when we worked with the first school, maybe it's peculiar to this school. We now said, okay, let's go to some selected schools here in Lagos. We even went outside Lagos to Anambra and some other states. And then we realized that most of these students in SS classes were just being promoted. They were not learning anything. They were not learning, they were not reading at their class level in the public schools. As a matter of fact, secondary school students that can't even read primary 2, primary 3 books, that we now had to start bringing in Queen Premier to teach them how to read. So it was, sometimes when we are going back to the office and I'm in a class and I'll just keep quiet and I'm sad, I'm heartbroken, because I didn't know the seriousness of the illiteracy problem in Nigeria, that you have students in secondary school. Now we are thinking about secondary school, we don't even know of what the primary school is. So when we now eventually went to primary school, it's even the same problem. And then, these secondary school students started from that level. They were not exposed to the right teachers, the right learning facilities. And then they just go into secondary school like that. And most of these children, the saddest part of this thing is that they come from low-income families, from families who don't really know the importance of educating a child. So they are just going with the flow. They see that the parents are illiterate. So the child too is my parents are not forced, they are not well read, they didn't go to school. So why should I kill myself over reading and all of that? And then, I come to interact with some of these students and you can see where they are coming from. Some of them had even been made to, you can't succeed academically, just go and learn work. And so most of them leave school, and where they go to is they are learning welding, they are learning mechanic and all of those things, tailoring, while they don't have an educational background. They don't have an academic background that would make them, even if they want to go into handwork later in the future, would make them stand their ground, open them up to opportunities. So these are some of the things that I've been able to, come across in the course of being a literacy tutor, and it has even made me more passionate about literacy in Nigeria and to be an advocate as well to help these children who don't have the access to, you know, the right education and to have access to them. Yeah. So
Right.
basically that's been my experience so far. So
Wow, that's interesting. Interesting.
yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people are aware of this. They're not aware of what is going on or the seriousness of this issue. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that it's like you coming up, and I hope this piece or this video would inspire others to also, you know, promote literacy among children in Nigeria, especially.
Yes, we really, really need to come all out. We want organizations to really support foundations that are all out for literacy improvement in Nigeria.
Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Shewo, how do you define literacy itself? How do you really, what's the meaning? How do you explain it to?
Okay, you know, this, even when you go online, you see that there are so many different definitions for literacy. But for me, I would, my own definition is moving from the place of ignorance to educational enlightenment. That's for my own definition. I just had to simplify it that way, moving from the place of ignorance. Because you see, basically what literacy does is to take you from the place of unknowing to the place of knowing. So you it's not, when you look deeper at that word, it shows that when you are literate, you are exposed to so many opportunities. You have knowledge of things around you, wilder knowledge. So, but when we want to bring it down to, okay, the what's it called, UNESCO definition, it says literacy is the ability to identify, understand, interpret, create, communicate, and compute using printed and written materials associated with varying contexts. You know, and it went further to say literacy involves continuum of learning that enables an individual to achieve their goals, develop their knowledge and potential, and to participate fully in the community and wider society. So it's very important for any man. Every woman has a right to literacy. You know, computing materials, you can read printed materials, you can read written materials, and then you are also open for you, and you can also develop your potential. And that's one thing literacy opens you up to. So it's something that every human being should not be deprived of. Every human should have access to literacy. And it is one of the things that helps our society to grow. It is one of the things that helps on the home front to educate the younger generation. So looking at the situation in Nigeria now, you can see that a lot of problem we are having in Nigeria is the problem of literacy. It boils down to literacy, the literacy level of this country. You can imagine a country like Nigeria setting aside 7% of the budget for literacy, for education, a larger deal into infrastructure.
I think we had,
and you don't have people who are literate enough to handle those infrastructures. And that's why you see industries and all of that they've built and they are not functioning because they don't have the capable hands to handle all of these things. Would you employ an illiterate person to handle a what's it called, hydro dam? You can't employ those ones. It's only educated people, and that's why literacy, it's very important. According to the definition, I understand, interpret, communicate, and compute using printed and written. So you must be able to read and write for you to optimally in any society. So I hope that definition is fine because I can keep going on and on about the definition. All right.
Okay, so can you expatiate? You mentioned that, okay, that's the importance of literacy, and that's why the country is still, you know, held back in a way. It's still not so developed because we have a good number of illiterate people. Yeah. So can you expatiate on the importance? Like, what is the importance really of literacy? How do you sell it to the layman? How do you tell them that, okay, come on, you have to do this. You have to get literate.
All right. So, importance of literacy. All right. So this is, you need to let them realize that basically for the students we work with, apart from the fact that we teach them, we also do the moral part of it as well. We make them understand, because the first thing you need to do is not just about teaching them, okay, you need to learn how to read and write. You need to know how to do this thing. You need to let them understand that the importance of this thing is for your present and for your future. When I talk to them, I let them understand where I'm coming from and what I've been able to achieve based on the fact that I am educated, the opportunities that I've been able to achieve because I'm educated. So it's not just about, oh, you need to just learn and read and write so that you can read books and all. No, it's to let them understand what it will do for them. The right to education is for everybody, so that you can harness your potential. You can also be able to contribute to the society. You can go for political roles, and the knowledge you have acquired and the more that you learn along the way would help you to do greater things. So I tell them that, see, it's not just, and then one thing I keep saying, it's not about clamoring for girl child education. The boy child also needs to be educated. As much as you clamor for the girl child, you should also clamor for the boy child too. Because an educated man or father will understand the essence of education for his children, regardless of gender. Yeah. He will understand. When a man is educated, he would not say, my son should be the one to go to school and the daughter should stay at home. Or the girl should be the one to go to school, the girl should stay at home. And, so an educated man will understand the benefits of training a child. He has been educated. He has seen the benefits. He can take care of his family comfortably. He has so many opportunities. So he would also want to do the same thing for his child. He would also want them to be educated. When we understand the role of a father in the home and in the society at large, it will help us to understand why we need to educate the boy, the boy child as well. Because you see, for a father to be able to really exercise his authority in the family, in the society, and in the nation as a whole, you need to come to a place of knowledge. And that is what education does for you. Compare an illiterate man to a literate man. The way both of them would think would be totally different. An illiterate man would not really give so much attention to educating child. It might just say, okay, let me make effort with one. But sending all of them to school, it might not be able to, because even he is struggling to take care of a family. So it will not be a priority for him. But an educated man, even he does not have the let's say $1 million job, $1 million naira job per month, or 500,000, but he's still going to make effort that every one of my children would go even further educationally than I have done. So the importance of literacy cannot be overemphasized, one in the family, one in the community, and as a nation. So schools also have a lot of role to play in this aspect as well. They are the ones who, because if you look at the life of a child, from childhood to even the teenage years, I've spent most in school. Like, okay, they leave home 9 o'clock in the morning, they are back maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock. They spend almost half of their day in school. So that is where they have to shape them in terms of, educating them, knowing values, knowing self-development, social skills, and all of those things. Academical and education, foundation that they need to gain are all instilled in them in school. So literacy, it's an important part of any human society, very important, and we cannot emphasize it enough. And that's why Flipbook has been trying to get organizations and let them understand what is happening in the country and why we really need to invest in education, because these children invest in them, right? By the time they go uneducated, barely come back and untaught, because you feel you are safe. Oh, you've educated your children. Those people you see out there who are the armed robbers, who are the kidnappers, most of them are the illiterate. if I don't have a job opportunity, then I can find another way to get around it. And that's why you see most of them end up in violent business, kidnapping, armed robbery, and all of those social media things that they get into. So illiteracy is very important. It's very, very important. And that's why I can come before you now to hold this session. I know if I'd been an illiterate, you wouldn't even think of calling me. Because I'm literate, I have a lot of experience. I'm knowledgeable about this topic, and that's why I'm here to have this discussion with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so now you teach boys and children at large, basically your students, right?
Yeah.
Open up and share their innermost thoughts. So in doing that, how does it help them become better? Because now they're expressing. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So one of the things that I do is like I said earlier. So apart from what we do, the literacy intervention program we do, because it's most time one-on-one interactive section, one-on-one learning session. So a tutor to a student, sometimes we do a tutor to 3 students. So we don't make it all about reading. There is a particular time in the week when we just call them together. Okay, no reading this week. We just take down. We want to know their background. We want to know how they got into this level of not being able to read and write at their class level. You're in secondary school, you're in GSS 3, you're in GSS 2, and you can barely read a GSS 1, primary 1 textbook. You are even struggling with what's it called, pre-premier. Most of these children, let me now tell you another thing. Most of these students in this public school don't even know what it's phonics, alphabetical sounds. So, and if you don't have the knowledge of alphabetical sound, you can't. You cannot. So what we now do is we now do a moral session with them. Moral session whereby we ask them to open up, talk about your experience. How did you get to this level of not being able to read? And you see a lot of emotional moments, crying, what had happened to them. Maybe they've been brought from the village down to the city. They are living with aunts and all of that. So, they barely have time to read. They are going from school to the aunt's shop or to the uncle's shop, and they are there late in the night, coming back home, so they barely have time to read. Some of them even has gone as far as telling me that they have told him that he will never know book, or that they said they have used his head or something and all of that. And the boy was crying because that keeps repeat. That's just one thing that has hindered him from learning. So he had actually built a wall around learning, that I can't learn anything. I can never assimilate anything. So, he was crying when I was broken, because you can imagine that boy must have been told this repeatedly right from the time he's been in primary school to secondary school. And then, he had seen himself that he said both him and his cousin, they've told him that they cannot amount to anything, that they don't know book. So he's been learning mechanic and all of that. So he's actually, let me just go through the secondary school and then just go and learn mechanic or fully concentrate on it, because he had actually closed his mind against any educational improvement or opportunity. So, I have to now, and then, also I have to bring in my Christian faith here. So that's, I have to now bring in the spiritual counsel and the moral counsel to let them understand that, see, those things they've told you, it's nothing. It cannot affect who you want to be. So you need to tell yourself now that you can learn how to read. Those students you see in your class that are trying, or they can read to an extent, they don't have 2 heads. You are just like them. It is what you tell yourself, that I cannot read, I can't learn this thing. And that's when you keep telling yourself something, negative words, they become the belief system that shapes your knowledge or your worldview. So you actually see yourself as somebody who cannot learn. So I do all of this counseling session with them, and you see a lot of them open up. And that's one thing I do with them. I am a teacher and a friend to them, because some of these students, they can really be unruly if you are not handling them well, they can be unruly, and I don't blame them. It's the background they come from. So many of them come from, the community they have been exposed to and all of that. So it's kind of shaped their behavior and all of that. So I always try to be stern with them and at the same time be their friend. And that way they open up to me, they talk to me. So that's one way I've been able to get them to open. And I've seen the ones among them who, tend to be bullies and you bully them, and I see them and I call them and I talk to them, because most of these students, they don't want to do this thing. They've harbored so much hate into themselves that, okay, I can't read and write, and then let me transfer this aggression into somewhere and all of that, So they become sort of antisocial, and this kind of thing, when it's not welcome, they grow into the society, and that's where you see all those delinquencies, antisocially aggressive behavior. So they become,
Right.
thugs and, the agberos and all of them, because they feel that's one way that they can overcome that low self-esteem of not being well educated. So that's one way we deal with getting these children to open up to us. And then you do a lot of giving them money. We give them a lot, give them money, just to motivate them. And then you just, give them money. That way you get them to open up to you, to get close to you. And I counsel them. And then at the same time teaching them, I'm also giving them moral instructions and values to bring them to become better person. All right.
Oh, thank you so much. So now that vulnerability makes them open up. In other words.
Yes.
Literacy.
Yes, that's one important thing about literacy, because as a matter of fact, people around them will not really have this kind of discussion with them. They really have this kind of discussion with them, and they just go with the flow through life like that, and that's how you see them. So when you see those thugs, those agberos in the society and all of that, it's because they don't, because one thing really literacy does for you is, like, through social studies and the civic education, they expose you to things that you need to understand about social skills development, human empathy, tolerance, and expression, self-expression. What you normally tell you at home, you're a boy all the time, and you can't be crying, you can't be doing this, you can go through life and all of those things. But education, literacy would expose them to the fact that, see, you have emotion, you are this, these are your strengths, these are your weakness. You just have to accept them, and then you learn how to improve on those areas of your weakness that would be antisocial for you. Okay, so that's basically what literacy does.
Thank you so much. Okay, so what is the connection between literacy and violence?
Okay, literacy and violence. All right, so I took something down here, and I said violent acts have something in common. Violent acts have something in common. One, hatred, anger, and mostly ignorance. And ignorance is caused by a lack of learning and education. Let me take it again. I said violent acts have some things in common, and that is hatred, anger, and most importantly, ignorance. And ignorance is caused by the lack of learning and education. So when you look at a child who is prone to be violent or exhibiting those kind of violent traits, okay, you ask the question of violence and illiteracy, what do they have in common? So I said hatred, anger, and ignorance. Those things come out from ignorance, hatred, and anger, because you've been harboring the fact that, oh, I can't read, I can't write, and all of that. So it sort of makes you feel unwanted, makes you feel less valuable. And that's the kind of anger you hold in. And then you take it through your life. You go into the society with that same anger and then hatred. And these are some of the things that bring about violent tendencies. So learning is supposed to be happening at the school and home, most importantly at school. So literacy helps you to learn some of these social skills that helps you to manage how you relate with others, how you manage your emotion, how you put yourself in the shoes of others. That is learning empathy and to relate with people based on their experiences. Okay, so but when those things are missing, then you will see violence will begin to breed. The tendencies to show violence, the tendency to show hatred, the tendency to show anger will all manifest. So this is why an illiterate adult will grow up and realize the numerous opportunity education could have afforded him. But unfortunately, lack of education will deprive him of those things. So he harbors hatred for the society and the community, blaming them for these things. And then that boils down to his family. Okay, so
Wow.
it is taking it out on immediate circle, the family, the friends, the anger, because he feels being not educated and deprive him of so many opportunities. And that's what I tell most of them. You see, when I talk to my students, I say, see, you guys do not understand what is happening now and the essence of these things that we are doing for you, the importance. It is when you leave this place, you leave secondary school. That's if you push and say, I'm going to finish my education, that you go out into the society, that the reality of life will eat you. That is when life will really come before you, and then you know if you have opportunities or you don't have opportunity, or you can nurse your potential, or you have the resources not to. So I tell them, see, I'm begging you. Sometimes I beg them. I say, I'm begging you. You see, this opportunity does not come but once. Organization that is read with you, bring your volunteers, use of this opportunity. Don't miss this opportunity. Put your privilege opportunity. You cannot afford not to use them, because most of them now, you see them, they are already showing that violent traits. You see the way they treat themselves, the way they fight in school and all of that. They've started exhibiting those traits. And that's because they keep feeling, well, I can't read, I can't write. Let me just get out of this school and get done with. So they've started exhibiting those behavior. Okay. So some of them take it out on others through physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. But you know, your blood vessels and bruises will heal. But ignorance will not disappear without an effort. And that's where education, literacy comes into play. Why education is paramount in the life of an individual. Because ignorance breeds fear. Fear breeds hate. Hate breeds violence. According to this American Nobel laureate, David Gross, he said, many of the major problems in the world today, such as racism, bigotry, fanaticism, of terror, are all caused by the sheer ignorance of the people. And then when you now look at this, there is a link between illiteracy and ignorance, and even this criminal behavior. So if you look at the rate at which crime is on the increase now, is because we are having more illiterate population. Nigeria is a typical example. Looking at the case in the north now, you know, the level of illiteracy in that area. I'm not saying they are not, the problem of literacy is not in other states and, you know, other geopolitical area in Nigeria. But you see, when you look at the case of North, and that's why you see so many of them are easily brainwashed to join this terrorist group and all of that. And then, you know, they are just doing those things without knowing the repercussion of what they are doing. They're actually hurting themselves. They are killing themselves. And that's because they don't know better. They are not educated. They are not literate. And that's why Nigeria needs to do better. The government should not be spending money on getting arms or acquiring arms. They are supposed to be investing in education to educate this populace so that the level of crime will reduce. Go and check our prison system right now. A lot of criminals are there, and the prison is becoming choked up. It's increasing because the crime rate in the country is increasing. And this violent act perpetration. Okay, a typical example is you ask the question, what's the link between violence and literacy? So look at what happened in South Africa when the issue of xenophobia was going on. And then they said they were attacking Nigerians. And Nigerians went to ShopRite and then started attacking shops owned by Nigerians, not even South Africans. Looting shops owned by Nigerians, shops employing Nigerians, and they caused million naira damages. Do you think an educated person will join those kind of people?
at all.
Of course. So those people don't really know better. They just heard something on the news. They are attacking Nigerians. Oh, they are South African. Oh, ShopRite owns South Africa. South African owns ShopRite. Let us go to ShopRite. And as a matter of fact, ShopRite is just a franchise here in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, most of the ShopRites you see in Nigeria are just Nigerian shareholders. Most of them are owned by Nigerians who just bought shares and all of that. And the outlet you see are owned by Nigerians. So you are actually hurting and harming yourselves. And because they are not literate, they don't know better. And a literate person will not take such decision, will not go and do such a thing. They'll say, okay, something happened in Afghanistan. Oh, somebody insulted their God and some of them. And Nigerian own here will take it out, protest, burn places, and all boils down to literacy. And that's what ignorance does for you. So it breeds fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of not being, self-identity. And then it breeds hate. From fear, hate comes in. And that's what leads to violence. Okay, so there's a link between literacy and criminal behavior. And that's why you see that the level of literacy is on the high level. And then, the higher educational level, the lower the crime rates per statistics anywhere in the world. Check it. Check some of the countries where they put so much, investment into education. You look at, I actually did a research on that. And then I see countries like Norway and all of that, where they invest so much in education. And you see that the level of crime, in fact, their prison is so unpopulated that for you to even commit any crime, it shows that you've done something grievous. And they don't just send you to prison, they reform you. But you look at the prison in Nigeria here, most of them, the reformation, to help them is not put in place. So they go out and continue with that violent act, and they still bring them back to the prison. And it's a circle, a vicious circle that keep going on. So the benefits of literacy for any society and country are endless in short term and in long term. So therefore, literacy should be viewed as an indispensable investment to curb violence in any situation, in any country, in any society. Because what many do not know is that the high level of literacy partly account for the low level of development in Nigeria and the high level of violence in Nigeria. If we invest more in education, it will help reduce the level of violence in the country. Most of these thugs, most of these agberu that you see there, if they are well educated, they would have better opportunity. It will even help us to, create job that will, innovative ideas. And that's why you can see now, okay, COVID period now, we did not have any research institute in Nigeria that could even say, okay, we were able to provide, okay, at least a sample of what we can say, okay, will help cure this disease. We don't even have research institute that are doing things that, would even put up on the world map of passport. The Nigerians that you see that are really doing innovative things are not in Nigeria. They are outside in other countries, adding to their, to the country's development, whereas they should be here in Nigeria. So a lot needs to be done to really deal with the issue of violence and how literacy would be I think, in fact, literacy is one of the major solutions to deal with violence in Nigeria. Because an educated person knows better, knows, okay, this is what I do, okay. You have been educated. It will be very hard for you to commit a crime that will send you to prison. You are going to be wasting years of your life. Opportunities will be missing. And then you look like you're starting all over. So you weigh your options even before committing a violent crime. But first, somebody who's not educated has nothing to lose. He will go ahead and commit the crime. And then, will go to prison and feel like, well, I'm not even making headway with anything in life. So you bring me to prison, I'll still continue that lifestyle. So you see, you check our prison system, it's all there. And then the insurgent problem in the north, armed robbery, kidnapping, all boils down to literacy, which works hand in hand with poverty. So literacy is so critical to national development, dealing with violence. And, we cannot just overemphasize the importance of literacy in dealing with violence in this country and everywhere else.
Thank you so much. So now you said a very solid point. You mentioned that if they know better, they will do better. And I think it's just a function of, so if their mindset is actually right, their actions also do as well. That's amazing.
Yes. Yes.
seeing the link between violence and literacy. So, in terms of domestic violence, now, how can we now end or prevent domestic violence through literacy?
Okay. Okay. So one thing I said is that illiterate people are more likely to commit violent crimes, such as
Yeah.
homicide, sadistic, show sadistic traits, sexual assault, arson, robbery, kidnapping, and all of that, because they feel that's the only opportunity that they have in life to achieve any good thing, or that's the only way that they can really show the anger they've harbored from the fact that they are not educated and they have limited opportunity in life. So they see those ways as a means of survival. And then, when you are not educated, when you can barely read and write, there are some of these social skills you will not learn. And that's why I feel, apart from the biology, English, and all of those things they teach in school, we need to put more emphasis on civic education and social studies.
Okay.
These are the areas, these subjects should really teach everyone how tolerance. That these things are lacking in those individuals. You see, what's it called? Intimate. All literacy is really important. There are, for an educated person who is dealing with, have anger or temperamental issue, he can go for therapy. He can read books that will help him to improve in those places. He will be exposed to knowledge that will help him deal with self, discovering self-identity, knowing his weakness and how to manage that weakness. But for somebody who is not educated, and that's why I did a research on this, and then I looked at the statistics of domestic violence in Nigeria. When you look at this case, it is more prevalent in a family where the husband and wife are not educated. It is more prevalent in a family where either the husband is not literate enough or the wife is not literate enough. Okay, I was looking at a video last week, and then this woman's eye had been pummeled, she had been beaten, her face was swollen. And then, people were asking her, why are you still staying with this man? Why are you still staying? Hey, how I go take care of myself? How I go take care of my children? Hey, I don't do anything and all of that. And you know that if this woman is educated, she will not stay with an abusive partner. She would have been able to make a better choice, at least know the kind of man that will treat her right. And that's why you see that the domestic violent cases in Nigeria are more perpetrated than by the illiterates, by an uneducated man. And this is somebody who should be educated, because by the time you start exhibiting those domestic violence traits in the family, the children are seeing those things. And subconsciously, they tend to move in that direction. And that's why you see those children who are bullies and all of those things. They don't just come up to become bully. They are seeing some violent traits around them, and most especially the family. And that's why you see, for any community, when you look at the community, how advanced that community is or underdeveloped it is, it all starts from the family. So domestic violence, you see, it is possible that reading failure is the single significant factor in this form of delinquency. I mean, antisocially aggressive behavior. And that's why you see that domestic violence comes into families. The man is not educated. He's taking his frustration out on the family. He's taking the anger out on those who are around him. And that's why you see that, okay, this kind of man will beat his child. Domestic violence is not just limited to the wife alone, even to the children. Children that you are supposed to, bring them close, correct them, you beat and beat and beat and beat. And by the time you keep beating that child, it's building up a defense system to that. And then it's subconsciously building up a violent trait. And then he goes out there, anybody who offends him, he feels the next thing to do is to punch that person or to show aggression. That's his way of showing that, okay, that's the way I can communicate my feelings. He's seen his dad do the same thing. He's seen his parents do the same thing. So he feels that's the only way you can actually make your feelings known or deal with issues instead of, talking to the person and resolving those things. So literacy helps you to, when you go to school, they are in school, teacher will teach them, right, so like I do. I have writing prompts with my students, and I just tell them, okay, what you are going to do today is we are going to be writing about habits or empathy, empathetic feelings. And I tell them, okay, write about how you feel right now. Just pour your feelings out. Pour it out on paper and then write and write and write and write and write and write and write. And when you are done with such things, and then I tell some of them, how do you feel now? How do you feel writing this thing? Okay, one of them will say, okay, I was angry before, I was not happy and all of those things, but I've been able to. So I tell them, tear it up, tear it up, tear it up, tear it up, and then throw it in the trash. So what you've done now is to be able to deal with this thing. Then I also do collaborative writing. So you ask them to write about, okay, ask this person question, how do you feel today? The person will reply, will write back, and then they'll also do the same thing and write back. So what you're teaching them is to learn how to put themselves in other people's shoes. So I give them writing prompts that help them to relate with people's feeling, understand people's feeling, and to relate with them. To understand that you don't go aggressive with people. You learn there is something that is called not violent and non-violence. So children should be taught all of these things. So children who grow up, I feel pity for children who grow up in a family where domestic violence is very prevalent. It will be so hard for them to really get over such traits and not exhibit such. And that's where school now comes in, to let them understand that despite whatever is happening in your family, you can learn to be a better person. You can learn to, express yourself in more calm way than showing aggression. So basically, literacy deals with violence, domestic violence, and I think the men too, they just need to be educated, and that's why I feel there should be centers where they would train them. You talk to men like that instead of sending them to prison. You just do a correctional facility whereby you teach them how to understand their feelings, how to manage their feelings, and to relate with other people. So basically, that's just what I feel literacy helps deal with violence, domestic violence in our homes.
Thank you so much. You mentioned journaling. You encourage your students to journal, write their thoughts down. And going through I know you're one advocate of journaling your thoughts down. So what is the benefit? Is this what you encourage everybody in general to partake of?
All right. So well, there are some, it doesn't just have to do with verbal journaling. We also do the verbal one. There are exercises that we do, and then we ask them, we take out pictures and just tell them to identify this emotion. What do you think this emotion looks like? And then they tell, okay, this person is frowning, this person is smiling. What do you think is going through this person's mind? So subconsciously, you're helping them to learn how to be receptive of other people's feelings. So you show them those images, they can tell, okay, what is this person feeling? This is what this person is going through. This is what, we ask them to create scenarios in their mind of what that person is going through. So they are slowly learning empathy. And then we now ask them also to now come out and replicate those emotions. Show us your different emotion, how you respond to anger, how you do this and all of that. So we now from there teach them how to now put themselves in other people's shoes, how you learn how to be more empathetic, how you learn to be more tolerant, how you learn to express yourself in a way that will resolve issues, in a way that will help kill any form of aggression that may want to come up or arguments. So those are the ways that they teach it. And then journaling now helps you to, because there's one thing that writing does for you. When you put down your thoughts a lot, it helps you to be more, it teaches you self-awareness. And then you see, before you can really relate with people around you, you need to understand self. You need to be self-conscious. You need to understand yourself before you can learn. And that's why you see a lot of people just go out there. You see them, they behave so irrationally. And you feel this person is so nasty. They don't understand self. They don't know what self-identity is. They don't know, okay, this is the kind of person I am. Okay, I tend to be upset about things and all that. So they need to understand that this is how they are. And then they now know, okay, this is how I can manage my emotion and not let it get the best part of me. Okay, so that's one of the things journaling does, you know, to put down your thoughts and to also understand yourself and others around you.
Wow. Okay, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much. So the moral benefits, in short, for men is self-expression, self-awareness, human empathy, tolerance.
Yeah. Yes. Okay,
So,
so moral benefits of literacy for men on men. Okay. Okay, so I read something in one of his Miles Moron book. I know you know him, right? He has written a
right.
lot of books on, you know, purpose, fatherhood, and all of those things. So I was reading one recently, and then it says something that boils down to, you know, moral benefits of literacy on men, and then it said to get a deeper understanding of the father in the human society and the relationship, it needs to first and foremost understand that he's a protector, is a teacher, is a disciplinarian, is a leader and a herd, and at the same time a caring one. You see, when a man understands all of these things, that is his purpose as a father, as a man in the society, and when he's educated enough, he would be able to really carry out this role, function well and maximally in every of this role as a protector, disciplinarian, teacher, and all of that. Because let me tell you the truth, and I know some people might not agree with this. What we see in our society now, you know, a lot of people are saying, millennia are unruly bunch, narcissistic, selfish, and you know, they say a lot of things about today's youth. And then I
Right.
just go on and smile, and then, you know, all of these things boils down to the family we all come from. You see, whatever shapes the nation we have today, the community we stay within today, it all boils down to the family. So what you see now is broken families, broken
Hmm.
homes, and all of these children come from there. And so they don't learn enough moral value. You can't blame the woman. The woman is doing all of that. Okay, because at the end of the day, most of the broken homes you see, the children don't stay with the father, they stay with the mother. And there is this authority that a man has in the house that a woman might not be able to exercise enough. I know there are some women, who are more mamopo, they can handle the fatherly role, but there are few of these women who can actually do these things. There are few of them that can actually handle this role well. As my mother can form, oh, she's strict and everything, blah, blah, blah. There are some times that she really needs to calm down. We just do it because we don't want her to shout, not because we want to obey her. But you see, when the father is there, the father is a disciplinarian. He only instructs, the mother carries out the command. He said, Miles Moron said, for him in his family, the father only gives instruction. Their mother just gives the command. And she told them, oh, Miles, you have not washed the plate and all of that. You know you should do it now. Otherwise, when your father gets back, he is not listening to the voice of the mother. He's listening to the voice of the father because he knows the consequences of not doing those things if his father comes back. So you see, when you now have an educated father, and then you know these moral benefits of being literate are there, it would go a long way in shaping the human society that we want. You can imagine when we have a home where the father and mother are educated and the marriage, there is every possibility that they would not have to deal with divorce issue because the morals are there. And that's why you see training the boy child, it's very, very important when the fatherly role is also there to guide them through. And then because you cannot deny the fact that a child who does not have a fatherly role growing up, there are some things that will be missing in that person. And unless he needs to now take on himself and say, okay, I need to learn this thing, he would make effort and say, I have to become a better man. I have to learn these moral values so that I can instill it in my own children. Because you see, most of the broken family that we have now, it all boils down to the kind of morals that we have in this institution. And you see, when the parents are literate, they can instill the right value into their children. Of course, when your literate mother will tell you these are the opportunities, they see that, okay, you're not doing this thing academically, or there are some issues that you're dealing with, they will tell you, okay, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do to overcome this emotion or deal with this particular challenge in your youth, in a teenage year, and all of those things. But for an illiterate parent, they might not be able to instill so much moral value in you growing up. So you just see that most of them just go into the society and they just live reckless life because they don't know better. The moral values that will really guide them in life are not put in place. All right, I think I should round up here. Right.
We have just a few minutes more because
like 15 minutes more. Okay.
I'm enthralled by this session. This is really enlightening. This is really, really enlightening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now that okay, you mentioned the benefits of literacy to men and how it helps with violence and ways that we can go about it and the moral benefits as well. So what do you think are the socio-economic benefits to literacy?
Okay, well, for the socio-economic value, you know, basic literacy, it's imperative. Like I said, in any society, it's really, really important. Okay, looking at the Nigerian population, for example, now mostly is made up of young people. As at I think last year or last 2 years, Adamu, Minister for Education, said 65 to 75 million illiterate people are in Nigeria. 65 to 75 million people, illiterate people, are in Nigeria. So that's we are sitting on a time bomb. We are sitting on a time bomb. So you can imagine if this population is illiterate. What do you think? How do you think value or development will come to this kind of society with this large number of it? You see, mostly of young people, made up of mostly young people, and that's why it's like, okay, we could handle this COVID-19 issue better than every other country because we have younger population and who can, immune system can fight the disease. So what it means is that we have an army of young people whose inability to read can be exploited negatively. We see it in Boko Haram. Terrorism, ignorance, agberism, criminality, poverty, and national development. I know I'm using some big, okay, I think I call that agberism myself. This is a serious problem because if you have this large population of young people who can barely read and write, they will be exploited. And that's why you see that our politicians are using so many of these young people. These people that